All right. Hey, everyone. We're back again. It's nice to see everyone, and welcome to the Partner Matrix webcast. Today, our guest is Glenn Robertson from Komz, and we're really excited to talk to him. This is the first of a four-part series that we're working on called Driving Partner Sourced Revenue, and it's the 4E's. This is the first one, engagement. In future sessions, we'll be talking about enablement, education, and experience. This webcast is I've been watching the Olympics quite a bit lately, and this webcast feels a little bit like a sprint. It starts fast and then it's over before you know it. So we're gonna crack right into this. And Glenn, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. Pleasure to be here as always. I'm looking forward to the 30-minute sprint ahead.
Good. I'm not sure that there's anyone in the channel that doesn't already know you, or at least of you, but let's start with this. You've got a fairly new organization that you've been spinning up lately. It's getting a bunch of traction. Glenn, why don't you introduce yourself, introduce Komz, and what do you do that makes you an expert in this area of engagement?
Vaughn, you're very kind. Thank you. Okay, yeah. So I'll be as quick as I can. So I'm CEO of Pure Channels, the channel agency, but B2B marketing agency that focuses only on working with organizations that go to market through the indirect channel. I'm also founder and CEO of Komz. Komz is what we call partner communication management. So it's a tool that we've built specifically from and in and with the channel experience that we've got, that enables vendors to communicate with their partners in a much better way, thus driving better engagement.
All right. Okay, so one of the things I like to do is try to figure out how people define their world. Okay, I have a background in sociology and some different things, and words have meaning. And
Right.
when we start to do partnerships, it has a whole bunch of stuff that's sort of attached to it. What is partner sourced revenue in your world? Because it's different for different people.
Yeah, fair comment. Yeah, it is different, and we can talk about phraseology for it's probably a whole other series, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But for me, I think partner source revenue, broken down simply, any revenue that comes from, is originated from, or has been at some point influenced by a partner. It's kind of a weird one, because there's like the more traditional side of me, which is out and out standard traditional channel, that kind of says it should be about revenue and the revenue that a partner brings in from a sale that they have made, i.e. therefore very specifically partner sourced. But then that's kind of a bit the old school. As I think about, maybe it's a wider concept now as we move kind of from source to influence, and maybe we can draw parallels from old to new. I don't know, something along the lines maybe of resale versus referral, one being very sourced and one being more influenced. I don't know, maybe. I guess I think if we talk about maybe more about something like inclusivity, and we become, I become more and more a fan of the word influenced, okay, because it should be more about how many times a partner has been involved or touched a sale or had some influence, or did they introduce it? Did they add it? Is it their expertise during, or did they assist at some point? And ultimately, could it have moved to a close without them? So however they were involved, have they influenced it? And I guess moving from that phraseology of sourced to influenced, influence to me feels more multidimensional, whereas maybe sourced is a bit more one-dimensional. And of course, moving from that one-dimensional channel into and through the ecosystem, like sort of movement that we're seeing now, it feels like influenced is a much more multifaceted, multidimensional explanation.
Yeah, I agree with that. The folks that I talk to in the industry, they're using that word influenced a lot more often than they're using sourced. It's a blessing and a curse because you end up with these influence deals, but then the CFO jumps in and says, "What part did they play?" And
Yeah.
it, they influenced it, and
Was it
they're
worth it?
asking you to prove it, right? And
Yeah.
and it becomes kind of an interesting challenge. On the other end of this, what about we'll end up talking about partner engagement. What for you? What does partner engagement mean?
So it's again, really, really interesting. When we talk about partner engagement, you kind of think like, that people should have partner engagement plans, right? Or they should have a program that revolves around partner engagement. But what makes it really interesting is all the years we've been doing this through Pure Channels and then through building out Komz, all the vendors that we've worked with and have had as clients from Microsoft, AWS, Adobe, Dell, and many others. None of them have actually had an engagement program or an engagement plan. And I think that's because probably partner engagement runs through almost everything that you do with a partner. Every touch point you have with a partner is so important to determine whether or not they're engaged. And that's right across the partner organization. So it really, partner engagement is about how a partner can be involved and how that involvement can result in essentially driving revenue.
Yeah, and the more engaged, the more revenue. Typically, I mean, it's not
Yeah.
always the case, but generally.
Well,
So how did we get here? I mean, not to give you a history test or anything, and maybe it's pretty obvious, but why is partner sourced or influenced revenue such a big deal, and how does engagement cross-sect that?
For me, again, this is my opinion. There's no real science. It's just experience led, and my opinion is that it's all about audience. It's all about audience. Very simply, creating, maintaining, building, and developing a network of partners that amplifies the reach that you have to the audience that you desire to interact with. You can't realistically reach as much of an audience as you want or as much of the market as you want on your own as you can by going with others. So for me, this is all about audience and reach, and the benefits and the extension of that reach that you can get by going collectively rather than individually.
That's really interesting because I actually hadn't thought about the introduction to reach and I know that maybe I should have, right? But a lot of times we just talk about the revenue outcomes of all of that, when really what you've just mentioned is that it gives you access to an audience that you can influence, and some of that might result in immediate revenue, but some of it may not, and it may not matter that it's not. That's resulting in your ability to influence things that go into that particular vertical or that particular region.
And maybe that's the marketing in me and the sales in you.
Yeah. You're probably true.
I'm looking at the big audience number and the reach and how far can we go, and then funnel that down into the sales that you win, close, win, close, lost.
That's quite true. As the chief revenue officer, it's probably no surprise that my primary indicator is revenue. There you go.
Exactly.
It does say a lot. Okay, so people are starting to spin up their programs, and they deal with their value propositions and they put their incentives in place, but they don't always think about the partner engagement element of that. So when they're building out their programs, what can they do to help implement the partner enablement, the partner engagement side of all of that, so that their programs are more successful?
I think it's about understanding that engagement exists at every level, right? There's a process to this. There's a pathway of it. I see it in different stages. From from start, middle, and longevity of the life cycle. So, you know, partner engagement doesn't actually start when a partner becomes a partner of your organization. Partner engagement starts way before, right? So in the awareness that you're driving, in the understanding that you're putting out there, in the messaging and the perception that you're delivering as an organization out to what is potentially an indirect world that you're looking to attract. So if you're engaging with organizations before they become partners, it's probably a little bit easier for them to become partners, but then also you're driving that awareness so that they become more and more understanding of who you are as an organization. And at that point, when they do actually sign and become a partner, that they should already be heavily engaged. And then the engagement comes with how good is the onboarding, how good is the experience, the first touch point, the second, the 30, 60, 90 days of onboarding and time to revenue, time to transaction that they've got. That's one part of that early stage engagement. And then you've got that ongoing piece where you know the honeymoon period's over and you're kind of like, how engaged are these guys? You know, are they any good, or are they doing anything for us? And then, of course, you've got the longevity, which is the maintenance, the development and the maintenance of that engagement and of that relationship over time.
Yeah, it's so funny. I've done a whole bunch of recruiting in my day particularly when I was a consultant to the industry, and we would go in, it would be completely cold. We'd recruit them into the ecosystem. They'd join and they'd either get ignored or they'd try to come on board, but it was a little bit clunky. And, and we were doing this for some of the largest organizations on the planet. But what you're saying is maybe think about warming them up before you actually recruit them cold.
Yeah, exactly. It's about relationships, isn't it? Creating, building, and nurturing over time. Because then ultimately, what are we looking for? I call it the ultimate engagement should really come from, and again, what I call unconscious engagement. Okay, so it's when a partner is acting almost unconsciously in the action of influence. So they don't need a regular email, they don't need a regular call or a spiff or a pizza day or some kind of incentive to ensure that they're constantly engaged. Any partner acting without encouragement are at the point of ultimate engagement, right? And they become genuine ambassadors over time. They're few and far between, but if you can use that as the thing to aim for, unconscious engagement, it's a fascinating and very powerful place to be.
Agree. Hey, Glenn, just while expanding on that, I think from my perspective, when I look at the vendors partner program and our own customer data points, I immediately found that the whole partner engagement is actually can be a threefold process. The first one is the people, where the vendors have the internal people who actually know what it takes to engage a partner, right? Do we have a common consensus or definition of partner engagement? Do we have an end goal in mind that what an engaged partner can do for us? And then second is the process. And as you have previously outlined, do we have an impeccable or seamless process for partners where they can come find the right information at the right time? Do they have a right platforms to have a very unified experience when they communicate or engage with the vendor? And the third is the technology. Because most of the time these vendors have disjointed platforms, and when they have a disjointed platform, it creates a very cumbersome experience for partners. So it all encapsulate. If we encapsulate all three things, that should definitely lead to a very nice partner engagement strategy from my perspective.
Okay. Yeah, right. Because if you think about it from the other point of view, and we flip this round, and we're talking about partner engagement, positive engagement, the impact of positive engagement on revenue, and. If we flip that round and look at the impact of potentially negative engagement or low engagement, and actually what does that mean? Because we talk. I think the title of the session is about partner engagement and how that can impact revenue. Okay, and what we tend to do is we always tend to fall back to the standard situation of good engagement means more revenue. But what we should also be paying almost equal attention to is the fact that bad engagement or low engagement or negative engagement can also impact revenue, because that means that it's potentially dropping off, or it's not being retained, or it's certainly not being grown. And the other point of that is if partners are not engaged with you or engaging with you, you can be absolutely certain they're engaging better with someone else, because they're getting better attention. Maybe their overall partner experience is better. The way they're being engaged is better. And therefore the revenue that is coming as a result of that good engagement elsewhere is going elsewhere. So there's two sides to it, and you have to.
How are you? Okay, so you've got this business called Komz, right?
Yeah.
You've got this big marketing background. How are you solving for that through your current business?
So a couple of ways really, and they both intertwine. Obviously, the agency works on kind of all of the background stuff and all of the stuff that we put together. We have a huge creative department, and we place a lot of emphasis heavily on great content, compelling content, and beautiful creative. Something that the channel is not well known for. Right. So we got that piece. We got that piece in the agency. But what we found over the years is that we've run so many partner communications campaigns, and we've managed so many partner communications activities for major global vendors, and everything still happens in the same way, right? Which is it's basically done through a send-to-all, one-size-fits-all monthly partner newsletter. Everything gets collected in, which takes days and days and days. Everything gets reviewed, everything gets rewritten, everything gets sent out and translated and approved, and then collected back in, and it gets loaded into the newsletter tool, and then it gets sent out for approval and segmentation of data if you're lucky, and then designs of templates and all of these things. There's very rarely one single person dedicated to that whole activity. It normally falls on the shoulders of a channel marketing manager.
Yeah.
So we kind of looked at that, and we kind of thought there's got to be a better way of doing this. And so what we did was we flipped the narrative, because we like to take an alternative view of things. And we kind of went, let's make this less about the vendor sending stuff and more about the user receiving stuff. And not only that, but choosing what type of stuff they want to receive. So we're not taking away the vendor's ability to send stuff out. All they do is they send it, but they send it into Komz. And what Komz does is holds it, and it acts as a matchmaker between the stuff that the vendor wants to send and the stuff that the user wants to receive. And then when those things match up, Komz simply sends out the communication that the user wants to receive in a way they want to receive it at a time that they want to receive it. So we flipped again the narrative from being sender-led to being sender-led to being user-led, which means when you give people preference and choice over the content that they want to access and consume, their engagement and their experience of that content is going to increase. You think about it in your own buying terms as a consumer. If you get stuff constantly forced down your throat, you're less likely to engage and you're less likely to buy. If you go somewhere and your customer experience is really, really good, you become more engaged and you're more likely to buy. Not only that, you're more likely to engage again, and you're more likely to buy more.
Yeah,
100%.
True. Yeah.
Hey, Glenn. Sorry, Juan, go ahead.
Go ahead. We have a question actually from the audience. So, talking of engagement of partners, is it stretching the analogy too far to suggest there's a deeper marriage stage? If so, what does that look like?
A deeper marriage stage.
Marriage stage. You get connected to them. You're engaged, right? You're engaged, and then eventually you're married. So what does that committed phase look like?
So a lovely question. Really, really like it. And okay, so why don't we relate it back to what I said earlier in terms of this state of unconscious engagement? Because actually, if we think about it in relationship terms, you're courting, you're going out, you're dating, you're doing those types of things, which is the pre-partnership sign-up piece, right? Where you're doing all of that stuff, and yet the engagement still has to be good, because otherwise you're not going to move to the next stage. You move to the next stage, you get engaged, and this is where you've signed the form, you're a partner, and you're hoping that you're constantly going to be engaged, you're constantly going to have your needs met, and your wants responded to. And then at that point, if all of those things line up, all of the E's line up, and that ultimately provides the best possible partner experience, you get to a state of this unconscious engagement, which is it's no longer a requirement that you need, motivating or incentivizing. You will take action almost independent because you're so committed to that relationship.
Yeah, that makes sense. So go ahead.
I think, Vaughn, in order to measure the depth of this marriage, the technology can come to the rescue, because it can help you measure, track, and optimize the relationship of this marriage, right?
Yeah.
So you can truly see how your partners are engaging with the vendor, what activities they are taking on the platform, so you can truly measure the depth of the relationship.
Yeah. It's very true, Akash, right? And when you also think about it, if we let's stay on this analogy, it's also tough. So you do need help occasionally, right?
Yeah.
It takes time and it takes dedication, and in the same way that is correct in personal relationships, communicating effectively with your partners is a long-term commitment. All right, it shouldn't be seen as a chore, and it's certainly not a short-term tactic. Yes, you can use tactics to optimize engagement at certain points, whether it be quarter by quarter or seasonal. But it's still a massive commitment that you need to make, which is why it's such a disconnect when that responsibility is added on to the numerous other tasks that a channel marketing manager has to perform. And as you say, Akash, luckily there's help, there's tech out there, and it's not just about doing it, but it's also the tech enables you to be able to do it and track it and measure it and respond accordingly. And that's where that help within this relationship, makes a massive difference.
It's interesting. You've mentioned the partner experience several times so far, and that's a passion topic for me. I come out of an industry that measures experience before I ever fell into the channel, and
right.
That measurement of partner experience sometimes becomes the biggest predictor as to how a partnership will act, or how the partners are going to engage with you. We talk a little bit about that cross section of partner engagement and partner experience, and how those two things kind of work together to provide, well, the thing I care most about which is revenue.
Yeah. So yes, they absolutely cross over. They're not the same thing,
no.
but they definitely cross over, but they're like inextricably linked. You really can't have a good one without a good the other. As it was, I don't know if I pre-saw this activity several years ago, but within Pure Channels, I built a model for this and wrote a paper on this. And for me, the way it's set up is that partner experience is the whole thing. It's that's like the universe, the whole experience that a partner gets from a vendor, and that partner experience is made up of several core elements, some of which we'll obviously be seeing as part of this mini series. And engagement is one of those, and in fact, I believe it's one of, if not the major player within those other things. And then you've got enablement, education, evaluation, because it's really, really important to evaluate what's going on constantly if you can. And then evolution over time, because if you're not evolving, then you're either standing still or moving backwards. And so it's all of those things that make up the partner experience. And then you might have things like excitement. How exciting is this relationship, or am I enjoying it, or is it good enough? Is it fruitful? Are we getting enough out of it? But whilst they're not the same thing, partner experience and partner engagement, they're inextricably linked, and therefore they kind of create the whole universe of partner experience with the three key players within it.
It's interesting. I think that there are some great KPIs for partner experience, and really when people get down to it, a lot of times they're using simple tools like Net Promoter Score, or partner. They're using partner NPS and some different things like that. I haven't seen those same level of measurements and KPIs for partner engagement. What are some of the KPIs that folks should be using for partner engagement?
It's an interesting one as well. So I've probably started a lot of my sentences with it's an interesting one because there are many different views on this. I happen to think that there's no one metric that you can use to measure engagement. There are some obvious ones, things like email opens and clicks and responses and interactions, landing page activity, downloads, ability to fill out a form and request more information. Then you move it right the way through to things like training and certification, time to revenue, time to certify. You can look at NDF participation. You can look at deal registration, regularity, and then ultimately you can look at revenue. Neither one of those things are standalone, and not necessarily if all of them are great, does that also lead to revenue? We have to assume certain elements of intent and behavior, but none of them are kind of finite. But at the same time, at Komz, we work on the hypothesis that good communication, okay, regardless of whether it's about the new NDF program, how many deal regis you've made this month, is there a new incentive coming? Is there a price? Is there a price hike or decrease coming? Good communication does have a direct impact on partner engagement. And when a partner is better engaged, it's very likely that their partner experience increases and improves. And when partner experience is high, that's the thing that drives the revenue. So it's easy to have a bunch of metrics, but also you need to know what you're measuring and why you're measuring and which ones work for you as the organization. I don't know how many are listed, probably 7 or 8, but there's a few there, because as I mentioned earlier, there's that crossover into that consumer activity, right? Where you're happy and you're getting a good experience, the chances are you'll return and spend again and spend more.
Yeah, they stack to get to that point.
Yeah.
Josh, what questions do you have? I know that they're, I always monopolize the time on these.
No, I was just expanding on what Glenn said on partner engagement KPIs. So one of the things that we always recommend to our customers at Mindmatrix is to build this scorecard around all these activities, which Glenn, you just outlined, and put different partners in different quadrant, right? Then you formulate your strategies that how to deal with one set of partners, because you need to have different strategies for really highly engaged partner segment, and you need to have different strategies who are not engaged with you. So you can truly track and put in different quadrant and have a very tailored strategies, not only the communication, have a tailored strategies to tackle each of those partner segments. So this is what I wanted to convey.
Yeah, absolutely. And not treat everyone the same, and understand that different partners have different needs and therefore will respond differently to different types of communication and engagement.
Segmentation matters.
It really does.
Coming out of the research world, that you wouldn't believe how often that was the difference between success and failure. Okay, so we're running out of time. We've got 3 minutes left. I want to hear what the future holds for all of this. What's the, where are we headed with partner engagement? How can vendors stay on top of this? It's becoming more and more important as partners get more and more vendors on their docket, right? Like it used to be that they would, when I first started this, they'd have 2 or 3. Now I think the last thing I heard was somewhere between 7 and 10 that they're supporting. How do vendors ensure that they're engaged with their partners for the future?
They have to understand and accept that it's a thing first, right? Because it really is, and it's very easy for me to say that, and it sounds really rather flippant as I say it for a wry smile. But the reality is that so many vendors actually are still stuck in the ways of 5, 10, 15, sometimes 20 years ago, and understanding that personal, because we talk about partners, but there's only a partner. There's never a partner that isn't made up of people, right? So we have to understand that the personal element and the personal impact here is so important. So they have to understand and accept that engagement is absolutely a thing that they need to take seriously, and how it is absolutely related to revenue. That's the headline, and then you just chunk down from there based on all of the things that we've talked about so far.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so I like to do this at the end of each one of our sessions. If you had 30 seconds. What are your 3 biggest hot takes from this conversation? If you wanted everyone to walk away with 3 things, what would they be?
Partner engagement is absolutely related to revenue, both in a good way and a not so good way, as we talked about earlier. So leave your ego at the door. This isn't about you, the Mr. and Mrs. Vendor. It's all about the partner. This is the decade of the ecosystem, not the ego system. There's a quote for you. So understand the importance on the phrase engaged partners drive more revenue. It's absolutely related, and you have to understand the importance of it. Because other people are, and assume nothing. Just, when it comes to partner engagement, true partner engagement is not a quick win. Don't assume anything around your partners being engaged if they're not. And if they're not, then they should be. It takes time, it takes consistency and commitment. And yeah, remember that phrase as well, unconscious engagement. Partners acting positively without intervention or incentive is the ultimate goal of where we should be driving for.
I love that. That's a great way to end it. Glenn, thanks. We really appreciate having you here, and I'm sure we'll talk to you again on this Partner Matrix webcast. But thanks to all the listeners. We really appreciate you, and hope you have a great rest of the week. Take care.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.